Welcome, parents, to the NCFCA Online Summit. My name is Amy Joy Tofty, and it is my pleasure to serve as the Director of Education for NCFCA. Since 2001, NCFCA has empowered Christian students to apply and communicate their worldview with skill and clarity. Through regional and national competitions supported by training and curriculum, tens of thousands of students have demonstrated confidence and excellence in communicating truth with grace. So we're so glad that you're here today. I do want you to be able to interact with some of our guest speakers today. So we're going to start out with a facilitated discussion. And if you have questions for the speakers, you can type those into the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer those as they come in. If you have tech issues during this session, you can email summittech@ncfca.org. Scripture is full of conversations about parenting and about bringing children up in the love and admonition of the Lord. Today, I just want to focus on Ephesians 6, verse 4, that talks about fathers, bring up your children in the discipline and in the instruction of the Lord. We want to be encouragers and fanners of the flame of faith in our kids. And so today we have some great guests with us. This session is specifically designed for parents. You'll learn how to engage your students and evaluate their speeches, serve in your club. So you're in for a special treat. Our sponsor today is Lasting Impact, and we have some great giveaways from Lasting Impact later in the session. Our first guest speaker is Mrs. Heather Neumann, the founder of Lasting Impact, which is a resource geared towards parents, students, coaches, and clubs to empower their journey with speech and debate. She's also a Region 6 parent and a club leader. Our second guest is Mr. Zachary Rosa, and Zachary is a Region 4 NCFCA alumnus who competed in 2 debate styles, 10 speech events, and he was a national champion in illustrated oratory. So we're so grateful to have both perspectives here as we enter our conversation about parenting a speech student. So Heather, let's start with you. How did you and your family first get involved with NCFCA speech and debate?
Well, long time ago. It seems like a very long time. My children at the time, I have 6 children. My oldest was graduated. I think I was homeschooling at that point about 15 years. And my middle 3, I've got my oldest, my middle 3, and my youngers or my littles. Mm-hmm. My middle 3 were invited to go to a practice speech and debate tournament, and I dropped them off as I was just busy with my little ones. And my 14-year-old at the time came back saying, "This is so cool." And I thought, interesting that, and then I said to my 12-year-old, I said, "Well, what did you think?" And he was like, "That was okay." And of course I asked the youngest of the middle ones that were, maybe he was 10, and he was like, So I had this variety, and honestly, that's one of the things that I'm excited to share with you all today, is that each one of my kids are so different. And like Psalm 139:4 says that we're each fearfully and wonderfully made. They're completely different. And although they have adapted and changed, when we first got involved, we didn't come into this with a club. It was, and this was like, I think we had dial-up internet. So when I was trying to find out information, I know, Zach, that makes me
Zach,
really
do you know
cool.
What that is? Do you know what dial-up internet is?
Like that.
I remember it when I was really little. I think 5 or 6. I remember the sound and having to call in before we could get on the internet. That's
right.
Fish game on the internet.
Right. Everybody knows that sound.
Yes.
So I didn't even know like how to explore how do I get my kids involved. And so we went into that first season. We signed up, we affiliated with NCFCA. We just kind of did it. And we went to that first tournament, and I was like, oh, the gates opened up, and my 14-year-old at the time, I think she had 5 speeches and was doing debate. I had not even looked at her debate case, nor did I know what she was even debating about.
Yes.
And so we went, and I had my 2 little ones, and we were just swept in. It was like this vortex, and it was so amazing and so edifying, and it was relational, and it was glorifying, and my kids were learning great skills. And so fast forward, hence Lasting Impact, the organization that we created really comes alongside parents and students and clubs and coaches to kind of like be a multivitamin with you. So make sure that you're kind of, if you're a little like, where am I? And at this point now, we have the internet, we have so many different great resources, but really, I always say speech and debate is a journey. Yes. And it's been such a blessing to be able to come into it and evolve, and it's organic, and so it's been such a wonderful blessing, and I think everyone should do it.
That's fantastic. So for some of our newer folks, let me give you a little bit of our grammar, of our lingo. NCFCA is the National Christian Forensics and Communications Association. So really, let me boil that down for you. We are the leading Christian and speech and debate league. Okay. So we offer tournaments and competitions, opportunities for your kids to practice the skills that they're learning. And then we also offer resources and training to help you to teach them those skills at home or in a club setting. So our mission, our purpose here is to equip ambassadors for Christ to communicate truth with integrity and grace. So that gives you just a little bit of a feel for this. When people are talking about, we kind of got sucked into that vortex there, Heather's talking about going to tournaments, and you go to a tournament and you've got all your kids with you, and it's just a whole new environment. It can also be you join a local club. So Zach, tell me a little bit about your early experiences. How did your family get involved in some capacity with NCFCA?
I got to turn myself on mute here. I almost forgot. So my family, get a little bit of background. My dad's a doctor. My mom's an engineer. So they're very technical people. But we were also a very verbal family growing up. We loved talking and debating about basically everything you could possibly talk about. Being that my mom was an engineer and dad a doctor, there was like no subject off the table. So everything was discussed in my family. And so as we did that, they realized, I think our kids would benefit from trying out and seeing if they would enjoy learning communication skills. And at that point, they had no idea, where to start, where to go. So they shipped me off to a camp to learn debate skills. So I was at a camp for a couple of weeks, and then I came home and we learned about the NCFCA. Nothing really happened for the next month or so. I really enjoyed it. I knew I wanted to do something more with that. And then at our church group, we ended up meeting somebody who was in NCFCA, and that individual needed a partner. He was just getting started, I think, in his second year. And he was like, do you want to partner with me in debate? And let's try it out. So I said, sure, why not? Let's do it. I love doing that at camp. So we went to their club. And then I was sold. I loved competing in speech and debate. I was terrible probably my first year, especially my first few tournaments, especially looking back. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the relationships I was able to build while I was there, the friendships, the family time I got to get traveling with my family to tournaments. Right. And being able to speak with them and work with them on different speeches. It opened up a whole new different set of topics we could talk about, at our Bible studies or the dinner table. So that was just an awesome family environment, especially with regarding what the NCFCA facilitated when it came to conversations we could have. My brother, totally different story. Dragged him in kicking and screaming. He did not want to go into speech and debate. Sorry, Matt, if you're listening to that. But no, no, but then he ended up a better debater than I was by the end of that. He then fell in love with debate, and he became one of the best researchers I probably know and best communicators when it comes to really analytical information and compiling into something that anybody could understand. He was phenomenal. So there's a place for everyone in that.
And don't you think that one of the coolest things about speech and debate is that wherever you are, you can come in and you can grow.
Yes.
And so like what I always tell people, my 14-year-old was all in. My 12-year-old became a national champion. The one who said, it's okay. And so some of them have been like, yeah, it's okay. And some have been this, like my middle child kind of, he had learning difficulties and speech impediment dyslexia. And he said at one point we were going to take a break because, life happens. And he's like, no, this is something I need.
Yes.
I need this. And how he's grown now as a communicator in college and whatnot, this is a bigger picture about communication, and being able to be a good communicator is something that's a life skill. And so you could be starting at an 8-year-old in juniors, or 6 even, and we're never going to be finished. I'm just telling you, Zach, I'm still growing. I'm still stretching, And so I always say that when you sign up your child for speech and debate, you're also signing up yourself, because this is not something I pictured that I would be doing myself, but I believe that this is so beneficial.
And just being able to see also, like in my family, how much the family unit grew together through that experience. Because I expected, I'd go and I'd learn speech and debate skills, but I did not expect going into it that, oh no, this is going to grow a family together so much more. And like my relationship with my brother just like was awesome. Like we were always fighting together, and then we were speech and debate partners winning tournaments.
Yes.
So it was great.
Let's talk about that. Let's move into that idea of how can parents engage their students through this activity? How does it build relationships in the family unit? So Heather, talk to me just a little bit about quality time. There's kind of this myth out there that it's quality time or quantity time, when really it's both. So how do you spend quality time with students through NCFCA, through speech and debate?
Well, for us, the journey is like what Zach said, very much a together thing. When we are picking our pieces, trying to decide what we're going to talk about and reflect upon for potentially the next year, it's very much a communication process where, I'm asking questions or I'm throwing ideas out there. Early on, people would come up to us and they would be like, what is your family doing? And I would be like, practicing. Like I felt like if we were going to be spending this much time and energy, that my kids would have to practice their speeches in front of me. I quickly became their coach, sometimes their cheerleader, sometimes their shoulder to cry on when the one could not read his 1AC because he couldn't read.
Right.
So it's been a journey of togetherness, in the sense that when we read a book together, we can visualize it as a speech and think about what characters would we want to bring out if we were doing this as a speech. Or when we listen to the news or the radio, ooh, how could we make this into a speech? So
Yes.
the speech and debate world kind of follows us as always, like, how would we want to present this if we were giving it? It even goes into movies and plays, but when you're thinking about all the different ways that we communicate, it envelops our whole life.
Yes. Zach,
Yeah,
did you have a similar experience?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I went in for the debate because I wanted to do debate. Like that's what I enjoyed. And then I fell in love with platform speech. And that's what I loved the most doing when I was there, probably. I mean, I really love debate too. There's kind of a tie, but I did not expect that what I would really love was platform speeches. And I just did. I fell in love with platform speaking.
Mm-hmm.
My brother went in thinking platform speaking was the safest and fell in love with debate. And that was the thing he loved to do. If you heard Cody Dedon, our last session, he went in and he was just the dude. He could do anything interpretation wise. And he was probably one of the very best, national champion, many different speech events. So you go in, and regardless of where you are from what walk of life, you're going to slowly gravitate to what you realize your strengths are. And I think one of the greatest benefits of being an NCFCA is it's that chisel that chips away what you really enjoy doing. And you start to realize, what your particular skill set, what your communication style is. And that's something that carries into the rest of your life.
Yep.
Yeah.
It takes years to learn.
It is a changing, evolving thing. I know, like for my oldest daughter, she would say when she first started speech and debate, she loved being characters. but by the end, it was the message and the platform speaking that she really loved. And it's this, and my younger daughter, she is still at that. I would much rather be a character than myself. I think I saw in the last session, people said, how do you grow into these characters without feeling silly? And it's crazy, but you know, some kids do feel more comfortable putting on a persona and acting like someone else rather than being themselves and showing themselves.
So Heather, how can parents use speech and debate to really get to know their children? What are some of the questions that they should ask as they're trying to figure out who their child is?
Well, it comes down to, you know, interests. Always, you know, trying to figure out, okay, are we going to participate in speech and debate, which you know, many camps and clubs even that I have led, I asked the proverbial question, how many of you were made to come here today? And all the kids raised their hand and they're like, yeah, we had no idea that she was doing this today. And it's like, well, welcome to speech camp. And but really it's the kids being able to understand that how important this is, and that they have this amazing platform and gift to be able to give those who are in the room and listening. And so it might not be them acting like a character. Maybe it's a story of somebody. Maybe they read a biography that they want to tell other people about. And so finding their inner voice of what they want to talk about and be able to share, because that's what communication is. It's a sharing, and that's a really cool opportunity to be able to share.
That's fantastic. Zach, I imagine that you have several siblings. So just tell me, were they all similar? Are you guys different?
We are all extraordinarily different.
Okay.
And that's just what makes for an awesome family environment too. I dove into speech and debate. It was awesome. I was a go-getter. I love being nervous. I mean, one of the ways like I would get ready to go in to give a speech is I would go ask somebody to critique something in my speech to make me really scared, because then I would perform better when I went and presented. I do well when I'm really nervous. My brother, on the other hand, he wanted to be able to have time alone to prep and make sure he was ready to go. He did not want to be flustered. And then he was extremely good when he went in. And my sister is still, Kara, you are watching this. I know you are. Join speech and debate. I am still trying to get her into it. So I think she will this last year. This is her senior year. But yeah, people come from all different walks of life, all different personalities. And it's just usually an amazing experience for all of them. The main benefit for me is I met my wife while competing in speech and debate at the tournament. So it's like the people you meet, the competition experience you have, the skills you gain, it's amazing.
So Heather, we have several different speech events, right? We have platform speeches and limited prep speeches, interpretation speeches. So 10 total different speech events. How do you help your children choose which one of those events to do? And then really even when it comes down to speech topics, what kind of topics or literature they should use for those speeches?
Oh, that's a great question. So every student, just like what Zach and I have said, is so different. And so you really want to try to, number one, make them feel comfortable. And so, and believe me, for the majority of the human race, getting up in front of people and talking is already nerve-wracking in itself. And so I often tell parents that my family knows that if we're going to be doing this every year, we're going to do something that stretches us. So my kids have not been super limited prep people, but I have they've each had to try those different skills, because to me, both speech and debate, they all go hand in hand and they all work so well together. So we want the debaters to try interp, and we want the interpers who are acting to also debate, because when we can grow and stretch to really be great communicators and fire on all cylinders, is what I like to say, is that's our goal. And so some kids are going to start out with one speech. It might be a platform speech. It might be a speech maybe they did a research paper on, but we're going to adapt it to make it be speechy, to make it sound like a conversation, so that it's not I'm up here, with an essay. So we are going to, try to get them to, if I was going to talk about in classical education, we have different levels, like the grammar level. Maybe we're just going to work on our memorization, and we're going to work on our volume. Maybe the next level is dialect. Maybe the next year we're going to grow on stretching characters and trying to become those different personas. And then, later we might try the rhetoric phase and do more debating and the analytical thinking and being able to clearly think on our feet to give great arguments and critical thinking skills. So, but going back to your question, sorry, Amy Joy, going back to your question, I encourage parents to kind of let the student take the lead. You might say you only have to do one of the speech types, limited platform or interp, and allow them to explore it, because if they go to a tournament, they're going to also then see all the different opportunities and things that they can do with it, and they'll go, oh, I didn't realize I could do this.
Yes.
And so when whether you become part of a club or go to a camp or come to a tournament where you see everything, those kids that usually only do one speech, they go to their next tournament doing 2 or 3. And so,
Yes.
so it's just kind of letting them kind of be your guide, but, trying to decide, are you going to be the cheerleader? Are you going to be the coach? Or are you going to be what other hat? The teacher, in the sense that this is what we're going to do. This is your assignment. Your assignment is one speech, and where that then goes to the next thing is kind of up to you.
Zach, I want to just go to you for a second. In the very first session that you gave, you led the students through this incredibly interactive question and answer brainstorming session. So just talk to the parents who were not able to see that session a little bit about asking great questions to really get down to those core motivations and the things that are going to make a great speech for your child.
Right. So what I like to tell when I'm training coaches, when I'm going to teach a camp and I'm training a group of coaches to do it, is I say, okay, imagine you've never done public speaking before. You're an adult. You're working with a company, and then you're selected by your company to go give a speech to the President of the United States. Mm-hmm. And then all of your people in your company want to come and critique what you're about to say. Is that going to make you feel very comfortable giving your speech that you're about to give in front of the president that you're already so nervous about, to everyone in your company, for everyone to critique? That's kind of how I know I felt like as a student and a kid, even like giving my speech to my parents or the people they wanted me to hear my speech. Because I'm young, like I'm 16, 17. I'm not an adult yet. I haven't experienced what they've experienced. To me, they're kind of like, they're a bunch of presidents who have done way more stuff than I've done. And now I'm going to have to go give my speech to a bunch of adults from all different walks of life. So I'm already nervous about that. And then when I'm really pressured, okay, give me your speech here, give me your speech there, and then let me tell you exactly what you should change and how you should change it, that would stress me out. So as a coach, and my parents didn't do that. I'm saying I've seen that happen sometimes. My parents were great. They modeled what I'm about to say of asking questions with your students. So I was comfortable at certain points giving my speech to my parents or parts of my speech to my parent. And I also had coaches I was able to give them to. But one thing that they did extremely well is, instead of saying, all right, change this, it was, what do you think this type of person would think about when you say what you just said in your speech? Mm-hmm. So now, as a little kid who's already nervous, at least I feel like I'm the one coming to the answer, and I'm the one coming to the critique, and I'm kind of critiquing myself. And I don't feel like people are jumping on me, telling everything I need to change. So really, whenever I critique a student's speech now, I try to model that. If it's something that I'm like, okay, this is going to offend somebody, I'm going to ask them, what do you think this particular group of people is going to feel when you say it this way? Mm-hmm. Or if it's something I feel like they're lacking something in their speech, I'm like, all right, what do you think is a good phrase we can use throughout this entire speech that we can repeat over and over again so that's memorable in the judge's mind? I typically phrase everything when I'm coaching in a question. Everything. I almost never will say, you need to do this or you need to do that. It's kind of the Socratic method to an approach to teaching. Of you just keep asking them questions so they can come to the conclusion themselves. And it just makes them feel like you're on their team. You are both the teacher, you're the cheerleader, and you're the teammate that's going to help them get to the finish line, present to the President of the United States, or whoever they're going to present before. So that is
whoever they're nervous with.
whoever they're nervous about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the approach I take. So, and if you watch the first session, it was just literally 12 questions to come up with a topic. And I just walk through the students, those questions, and students plug what your answer is in the chat box. They're very simple questions. And by the end, then we start looking for common trends in those questions. And then after that, more questions to ask about whether or not this is a great topic. And so everything when it comes to teaching speech that I do, it's in a question. And then that helps students learn.
And it's digging deeper, right? Because there's always a layer to uncover, like an onion, like, oh, what if we tried this? Or what if you went this route? I know it's always something to I love the questions, and it's really the difference between the mentor and the coach, and wanting to see the kids have those aha moments that I talk about. And yeah, I love that, Zach.
Yeah, you won't see kids feel like they have an aha moment when you're just critiquing them with just, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Because the thing is, all of speech and debate, it's a training for a student to be able to critically think on their own.
And themselves, right?
Yeah. So if you're just critiquing them, telling them, don't do this, you're not walking them through a process where they learn to ask the questions themselves. And that's what you really want to model as a parent or a coach, is how do you get your students to the point where they can do all of this on their own, to launch them into the world and be able to then teach in the same Socratic method of asking questions.
So just a few definitions. Socratic method comes from Socrates, who himself as a philosopher, he taught only in questions. So he never spoke in the narrative. He always asked his students questions, leading them to the next great thought. So that's a great thing for you to look up. But as you both were talking, I couldn't help but thinking, this is what discipleship looks like. Discipleship isn't about giving the Bible lesson and telling people exactly what they're supposed to think and believe and do. It's about inviting them into a relationship where there's this ongoing conversation. So Heather, I know you've walked several students now through this, and you have adult children. How do you see those aspects of discipleship built into this activity?
Well, I mean, as you know, for my family, all three of my older kids are coaches and love to help and give back, and even my younger daughter too just gave back and was part of it. And although she's young, she's been around it now for a long time. But I think that it's the edifying and the pouring into and the building each other up, which, we can talk so much about the knowledge that we gain, but it's the heart that we want. We want to create relationships. And, my daughter's getting married in October, and her maid of honor is, her speech and debate friend. And we have had such impactful relationships that we have been able to develop through the NCFCA by competing alongside, but also growing and whatnot. So yes.
Zach, can you just talk about, from the competitor standpoint, a speech that perhaps was really your own journey to understand something about yourself, or a lesson that God was teaching you? A lot of times these speeches really are students processing through their own life experiences. So give me an example of when that was true for you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say pretty much all of my speeches were part of that process. All of my speeches required me to think critically. And then if I look back and I would have to give any of my speeches now, I would have to change them significantly to reflect exactly what I think. Because the truth is, speech and debate is a growing process. I would not put any of my high school speech and debate speeches up and say, this is exactly what I think today. Because the truth is, we grow. And I think it's beautiful. We can look back and see, oh, that's the point I was at when I was a 17-year-old kid. And now as I'm growing, the fact that I think a little differently shows that I'm still growing. So you don't have to feel like you're ever at the place where, you know, that I've now come to the conclusion of what I think for now and for all of eternity on this particular issue. So now I'm ready to write a speech and talk about it. That's not how it is. And it'll never be how it is, because you'll always grow and change. I mean, even if when you look at politicians, people who were politicians in their 50s and are still politicians when they're now 80 years old, their two speaking styles even now are very different, and they were adults at both stages. So, you know, people grow and change in their speaking style throughout the rest of their life. I mean, one things I like to do, if you were in my first session where we write out the questions to help us find a topic, it kind of shows some of our strengths and weaknesses, and we can tie some of those personality traits into our speeches. So one example is if I would write a speech on socialism. This is the one I competed and did well on. If I write the speech on socialism, I'm going to tie into the fact that, okay, well, I, as an individual, like to take things into my own hands and try to fix the problem. And in some way, socialism and communism is mankind trying to do that without any higher moral standard. And so can I relate to that? Yes. Do I agree with it? No. So you try to relate to your audience and find common themes that both you and your topic have in common, so that you can relate to your audience as you go forward. So that's one speech. Regardless, impromptu, I was able to kind of tackle a lot of my family history when I tell personal stories from my family history in my impromptu speeches. Apologetics, it was tackling my faith. So each category, I was able to focus in on one thing that I really wanted to grow in, and then practice in that particular area, processing through these either historical facts or family history or personal struggles or anything. And then you realize you just continue to grow through that process.
So as parents, the beautiful part about that is you think about what Zach just talked about there and all the different topics that he was thinking about and processing through. We have the opportunity to use those as springboards for conversation. And that's your opportunity to continue to shape and mold this wet cement as they're really trying to sort out what do they believe? How do we apply a biblical worldview to all of the relevant issues that we see in the world today?
I was going to share a story of my second child ended up wanting to do a kind of a darker interpretive piece. And it was one of those that I was really wondering, how would this go? And I was, as much as I wanted to say, no, you can't do this, I let him go down that process. He was probably a sophomore or junior, you know, right on that cusp of, I think I know it all. And so I did allow him to explore it, and he cut it and worked hard on it. And he sat and he was ready to present it and sat in front of me and said, I can't do this. And I was like, you know, but I feel like it was the process. And sometimes, and we haven't really talked about any of this, but sometimes this journey of speech and debate, it's so much going through the process. It's not the rewards at the end. It's in the trenches. How are you adapting and growing and stretching? And what is God, how is he working in you? And so there have been many scripts when we talk about, people often say, you know, you guys just must have this down pat. And I'm like, oh, you know, we tend to go through 5-6 different books to script it out and have it ready to say, okay, is this really the right one for us? And so just like how Zach has questions with platforms, I have tons of questions on trying to find their interp style and really just trying to work with what is it that you want to be working on for a year, and how God is putting this on your heart and how you're going to reach all these people. And I would like to also point out that, Zach, when you went to your first tournament, did you think that you were going to be like in this auditorium full of people and it was just going to be like you by yourself and whatnot? Because I will say, when a lot of times when I run camps and whatnot, everyone thinks that's what's going to happen. And sometimes you only have a couple of judges, just 2 or 3 or 1. And so I think that is also an adjustment for people to go, oh, I have to give a speech, but not in front of an entire room. So that's always something to think about too.
Zach, is that what you pictured? Did you picture like this big auditorium?
Not really, because I asked a lot of questions in club
Okay.
about what I was going to expect. So I was.
We didn't have a club. We couldn't ask those questions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to go to the parents who were a little bit like I was when I came into NCFCA. So my background is math and science, and I had a son who wanted to go to a speech and debate camp. So I remember sitting there in my very first camp thinking, this is a whole new world. Like I don't know how to think this way. I don't know the language. I really felt like, you know, in praying, just saying, Lord, are you kidding? Like really, this is not my world. Can we please do an activity that involves a science experiment? And so learning the lingo, learning the language, yes, I wanted to give meaningful feedback to my child. I had no idea how to do that. So talk to me for those parents who are just getting started. What are some of the ways that you would encourage them to dive into this activity so that they can be a part of that relationship with their student?
Well, for me, I mean, part of that is looking at ballots. So you can look at a ballot before you even go to a tournament and see the things that are in there, such as content and vocal delivery, all of the things that honestly, when you watch a television show or a newscast, that you're already kind of formulating your own thoughts and ideas. And so when you then kind of look at the ballot, you can kind of go, oh, well, here's the criteria of what the judges are going to be looking for. I can make sure that they do this. My one son that I told you who has learning difficulties, he also has a slight hearing issue. And so it took him 5 years not to be too quiet. He would want to draw you know, he wanted to draw his audience in, but like, honey, you're going so low that not even a good hearer can listen to you. And so you want to kind of look at those ballots to go, what feedback can I give you that can help you in those various areas? And again, some of them are very, very basic as far as, you know, vocal delivery, or physical delivery. If your child is standing like a robot and doesn't talk very clear, you know, you're going to want to make them comfortable and try to make them feel like this isn't giving a presidential speech. This is about having a conversation.
That's good. Zach, tell me about just when your parents first got started. What are some of the things that they did with you all at home? Did you go to a club? Did you use a curriculum? Like, how did they grow in speech?
Yeah. First year we went to a club, and the club was extremely helpful to get started. Then second year we kind of got a grasp on it, and club was really far away from where we lived. So we ended up being able to have an opportunity through curriculum and then coaching opportunities near where we lived. We ended up not being affiliated with the club as much the second year. And so both, you know, regardless of where you are, and thankfully in this technology age, there's now online clubs. So wherever you are, you can find an opportunity to be able to engage with clubs. And that's one of the places where you really get to practice before you go to competition. You get a lot of feedback before you go to competition, where you find debate partners before you go to competition. So, you know, club was probably the best opportunity for me to go back and forth, practice with other people, and begin to develop those skills. And then after that, you really hone into those skills in competition.
That's great. And if you are interested in finding a club near you, you can visit the website. We do have the feature of being able to see if there's a club near you. If there's not, I do want to encourage you. There's a couple things. Number one, you can start a club with your own family in your own living room. And we have resources that are available to you. We have a comprehensive guide for speech, for policy debate, for value debate. There are lots of online resources that can get you started. So don't hesitate just to start in your own home. And then if you're one of those energetic go-getter people and you think, well, I'd really like a couple other people to do this with me, you are welcome to give me a call. You are welcome to send an email to NCFCA, and we will get you set up so that you can start a club with a couple other folks near you as well. So I want to just encourage one thing for me as a mom, learning alongside my children. I definitely was not an expert in this at all. In fact, really, I feel like my 12-year-old kind of taught me. And so be humble and have that willing learning spirit just to go with your students. If they go to a club, sit down with them, take the book and learn with them. If they do an online class, 2-for-1 deal. You get to be there too. And I found that that was also a relationship building thing, because rather than me being the expert and just telling them what they needed to know, I was learning with them. So I think that's really helpful and important. Zach, I do want to ask you, because you had mentioned too, just as a student, there are times where you really don't want to give your speech for your parents, or you really don't want their input. So what I want to know though is what kind of feedback was the most meaningful for you? What made the biggest difference in your growth and in your communication skills?
Right. I mean, there's a couple things you need to consider as a parent when you're working with your student. The first, of course, is age. When I started competing, I was already 17 before I went to my first tournament.
Oh, okay.
So they're more independent, already doing a lot of things on my own. And so I wanted to be more independent in this learning experience. If you're a 12-year-old and you're just getting started, or you have a 12-year-old who's just getting started, they're going to need a lot more parental input than if you're a 17-year-old getting started in it. So age is something extremely important to consider as a parent when it comes to, like, do you really need to push your student to give your speech a ton of times in front of you, or should you let them have more independence in preparing it themselves? The second thing to consider is also personality. Some students really want their kids to, some students really want their parents to engage with them and give them a lot of feedback and help them develop it. And other personalities just naturally are more independent, and some of them will probably have to learn some lessons from their ballots that they get back from judges, because then they're going to listen to those because it'll reflect how well they do in tournaments.
Yes.
But really the other thing is, again, going back to asking your kids a lot of questions. You don't have to necessarily watch them give a speech, but you can ask them, what are you planning to say about this particular part, or this thing, or how are you going to address this issue in your topic, and how are you going to, like, just having conversations about it. I mean, I would say it's very important for at least parents to read the script of a speech, for sure, at a minimum, because that's just, you know, you want to know what's going to be said and if it's wholesome and it's acceptable to the audience. But beyond that, then it's just a lot of questions you got to ask of, you know, what's my kid's personality? How old is he, she? What are his preferences, and how can I really come alongside them and help them succeed? But it's
Which brings us full circle. And that brings us full circle to get to know your kid.
Yeah.
You've got to know who your child is. Heather,
and that's a way, if you do this correctly as a family, it's a way for the family to really grow so much together as a unit. Because there's just so much mutual respect built between everybody.
Right. I mean, some of our best and most fun conversations have been when we're thinking about, you know, when we're kind of at that speech mode, and one of the kids is maybe reading off their script, and there's a lot of us in our house, and still, you know, the older kids who have moved out are still come, and they still give feedback, and just the give and take, the back and forth of, what if you add this? You know, one of my kids have had, you know, the after dinner category, which is a humorous motivational platform speech, or an original where they write their own speeches, and seeing little snippets of each one of our family members come into their speech with them. It's really, really special. And it's not only even with just even sometimes our family, but other people that they choose to bless and give it to them, you know. So that's like when my kids would, you know, I'd make my kids do it for my mom, who lives distantly, and she just, you know, is just amazed at what these kids are doing and how they're growing. And so it's really important, I think, that the students who are in speech and debate, they realize what a blessing they are by giving these speeches. I know I work with many of the judges even, and the judges come out of these rooms feeling like there's hope for the future. And so it's a really, really special thing. I also want to say, on the flip side of not making your kids go into burnout mode by making them practice too much. I've worked with many kids who have had deep emotional type speeches, whether they are interp or platform, and every time they do it, you know, they become these characters. They're basically in 10 minutes, you know, experiencing what, you know, some of these missionary stories have gone through, or I think Natalia said that she loved Les Mis, and you think about those characters and what what they were brought through in 10 minutes is deep. And so you also need to be somewhat aware of the experience that they are also going through, depending on what their topic in speech is, so that it's not, you don't want them to get so callous from it that they just don't feel anything when they say it.
Right. You want,
great,
yeah, you
Heather.
want the speech to be new to the student. You kind of use time to give it. And there's really no way to like make that perfect, because by the end of giving it after a full year, you're gonna start to feel like you've given the speech many, many times. But if it's really important to you and it's something your student was able to pick themselves and it's near and dear to their heart, then it'll last a lot longer than something that, you know, was picked by a parent and handed to a student. So that's really important.
So let's talk just a little bit about clubs. So Heather, from your experience, I know you've interacted with a lot of club leaders. So is there like a certification program? You go to school to become a speech club and then you've got everything all figured out. What do most clubs look like? What's the fabric of most clubs?
I would say that if you want a club, do it. Because like for me, the reason why, you know, when we decided, oh, we're going to be a part of this, we were finally in an area that was at a club, and I just felt like this is community. And so these are my kids' people. This is who, you know, we end up doing life with. And so I encourage you to know that there is no rules to this club game. It's really just looking at what are the needs of your kids. If your kids, you feel like, need a speech club, then you can start a speech club, and you can look around your community and ask around, hey, is anyone else looking for a speech club? Would you come alongside me? Because it's always harder to start things as a single one person. But when you say, oh, well, I would be willing to help, maybe there's a really great organizer that wants to be, maybe they'll be your administrator. Maybe they don't want to be a club leader, but they are willing to handle snacks, which I'm just telling you right now, the snack coordinator has the most important job at my club. So as long as I don't have to think about snacks, I'm willing to do anything. But I do think that we, again, like what I said, very, very early on, you are signing up your kid because this is such an amazing thing. You're also signing up yourself. And so you have also an opportunity to grow and stretch in so many ways that you might not even know that God has in store for you. And so I know for me this year, it seems just crazy, but I'm not our in-person club, because I coach other online clubs. I am not our speech coach for our in-person club. I am our debate coach. And those of you who know me know that this is the world's biggest stretch of silly putty ever. But I'm loving learning more about Lincoln Douglas debate. I'm loving, because I'm right along with the kids. And you know what? Kids have the most grace ever. You know, they can go, oh, Mama Neumann, you know, you think you know debate. No, I don't. So teach me. If you know it more than me, feel free to teach me. So I'm just going what the guide says. So
that's fantastic. So we're gonna pause here for just a second. I'd love to invite our director of marketing, who just happens to be Zach's beautiful wife. So Natalia has a great giveaway. We are, I'll let you tell him now, Natalia.
Yes, our great giveaway is provided by Heather Newman's organization, Lasting Impact. And so thank you, Heather, and thank you, Lasting Impact. We're grateful for these wonderful gifts. And so I'm going to announce the winners. Just to give you a little preview, Lasting Impact has put together a lot of great resources to support you in your speech and debate journey. And so we're going to be giving away 1 membership program, 1 devotional, and 3 speech games books. And so I will announce the winners, and then we will connect with you. We have some demos here of what you're going to be receiving. But after I announce your name, if you could email summittech@ncfca.org, then we'll make sure that you receive your prize. So our winners are Angela Miller, the Bordelon family, Dan Tice, Elisa Wong, and the Sperling family. So if I have called your name, please email summittech@ncfca.org. I know sometimes it's hard to hear and catch all details while it's being announced, so I will copy and paste those names into the chat for you as well. But thank you so much for joining us. This has been a really great discussion.
And Natalia, if you'll stick for just a few minutes, because we have a few questions that I think you can help provide some answers for as well. So a couple personal questions. Heather, can you tell us how many children you have?
So I have 6 children ranging from 28 to 13. My youngest just turned 13. Ah!
And so you do still have children that are competing in the NCFCA.
I do.
That's
I will be
fantastic.
here for a little while longer.
That's fantastic. So Natalia, can you tell us about the resources that are available? Are they only for high school students?
They're not. So we have opportunities available in competition for students who are 12 to 18 years old. But then there's also what we call our juniors program. And so that's for the younger siblings who are even under 12 years old. We have some really great profitable activities for them to participate in. Because we found that they usually are the ones who are the least nervous. They haven't developed all of those self-conscious behaviors yet. So it's really good to get started young. I know I look back at my younger siblings, they're far ahead of where I even was at that point because they never even developed a strong fear of public speaking. So we have opportunities for all of those ages. The best way to get started is through affiliation. And so in order to receive the additional benefits that we can offer of competition and also trainings like this, additional support trainings that we do throughout the year, that's a really great place to start.
That's great. Heather, I want to go to you. This question is speech and debate program a good resource for a child with dyslexia?
Oh yes, I think that at least for my son, although memorizing a script was not reading it, it was really prompting him. And so, but his brain, he was good at memorizing. I think that none of those hurdles should stop these kids from still being able to explore the art of communication. And so it's just a matter of, okay, how can we make this work? I mean, I've worked with stutterers, I've worked with speech impediments, and it's really just, again, amazing to see how God still uses them and allows them to get better. You know, I mean, I had some new students this last winter who jumped in and, you know, they are just thriving. And so it's just such an awesome thing. I feel so blessed and honored to be working with all these students from all over the country.
Fantastic. Zach, can you just really briefly give our audience a differentiation between speech and debate? So we've talked about both of those and we use them all the time together, but how are those different?
Sure. So when I go into competition and I'm going to give a speech, I'm going to walk into a room. There's going to be several judges in front of me, from 3 to, if you're in finals, it could be up to 7 or 9. I can't remember exact number, but there'll be those number of judges. Then there's typically an option for some people to come in and watch your speech in the back. So those people are sitting there, and then you're going to get up and you're going to give a 5 to 10 minute speech, depending on what area of competition you're doing. And it'll just be you up there, unless you are doing a duo with a partner. And that means you and your partner will be acting out a speech on some book you've read. You're going to cut that book down and you're going to act out that book in front of your audience. So your speech can be on your speeches can be on any types of topics, with all the different types of events that they have available in NCFCA. There's really any type of topic you're really interested in, you can find a place to speak about it, one of the events. Debate is different in that you're going to go in and then there will be another person standing next to you who's going to try to disprove everything you just said. That's the difference between speech and debate. Speech, you get people in front of you for 10 minutes and nobody's going to try to argue against you. You finish speaking and you leave. You shake the judge's hand, you leave. When there's no COVID, you shake the judge's hand, you leave. And then debate, you're going to be going back and forth with somebody else on a particular topic that the NCFCA selected. And then you take that topic, you break it down into your own debate case, and then you argue your debate case. There are 2 different kinds of debate. And I know we're about to go into debate starting tomorrow. So join the summit sessions starting tomorrow for debate. Is that correct, Amy Joy?
That's correct.
They'll give you
Policy
a
debate tomorrow.
great introduction to what debate looks like. What we've covered so far is just speech. And so debate, you got your team policy debate, and then you have your value debate. So team policy, you have two people debating a policy issue, and then value debate, you have one person debating a value issue against another person. So 2 versus 2 and 1 versus 1. That's very
We are
basic.
going to do some parenting sessions for debate as well.
Yes.
So for the next 2 days at 3 o'clock each day, if you want to learn about what it takes to be a parent of a debate student, please come back for those sessions. So I just have a few closing things, and then we're going to pause for just a brief minute and come back for our 4 o'clock information meeting and question and answer session. But several of you asked questions about starting a club. How do I start a club if there's not one near me? So I just want to tell you, if you are interested in doing that, I have put my contact information in the chat box there, and you are welcome to send me an email and we will get you started on that path. We have lots of resources, and I would love to talk with you personally just about what is your need in your area. Also, just to give you your next step, the next information meeting that we're going to lay out all the offerings that NCFCA has to offer to you and give you times just to ask questions. Then we will do that same meeting tomorrow afternoon and Friday afternoon. And then you can look forward, because we are going to have an information meeting online as well, on a Zoom meeting where you'll be able to interact and talk with us freely. So just mark your calendars for that. We are going to have that on August. My apologies, I'm pulling up my calendar as we speak. It is on August 13th. It's a Thursday evening. So August 13th, it's a Thursday evening. We'll do that at 7 p.m. Central Time, and we'll send you out that information so that you're able to jump on that as well. So we're going to pause here for just a few minutes. If you would like to come back for our information meeting, you can just actually, you could just stay here and we'll be back with you in just a few moments.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zach and Heather.
I think a lot of the questions that are still open, I've noted we're going to answer live. So your questions are related to club and tournaments and what do you do next? You don't have a club near you. Stay here. We're going to get to all of the questions. We'll see you in just a minute.
Great.